why is it that when we were having a history lesson, we couldn't get experts in history to teach it to us?
I'm going to make this comment. As much as I may love history, this actually is, from my sense, it's actually not about history. It's actually about the impact that the history has on our students that are in our schools and our staff based on the sense of belonging for our students based on the names. That is where the conversation. And so the reference committee at that time, as part of the actual initial motion, outlined that we would need academics. The academics that we brought forward were academics around addressing students who are historically marginalized within our system in order to identify how we rename schools to ensure that all students feel that they belong. Thank you.
How concerned are you that this decision, whether or not it is the right one or the wrong one, and regardless of its merit, will be seen as a political decision as opposed to a one that is absolutely correct when we don't have those resources quoted within our backups?
Saying to you that there isn't a series of substantive historical figures that disagree with some of this. And that's where I go back to policy P047. Part of this particular process, that's the expectation is that we as trustees and staff follow the procedures and policies that govern this organization. And if we are to do that, we need to land in a certain place based on our own policies. Thanks.
So who were the academic advisor consulted when regarding this matter? Who are those people? Are they historians?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, the academics that were involved as part of the reference group included 3 PhDs. They were Dr. Vidya Shah, who is at York University, Dr. Carl James, as well from York University, and Dr. Suzanne Dion. That was the third representative. Thank you.
What's their background, by the way? What's their research background?
Sorry,
I'm asking whether they are historians. What are their research interests and the background? I want to know what they're specialized on.
So I can tell you that the 3 researchers, PhDs, have PhDs in sociology and have a range of expertise in anti-oppression, anti-racist education, as well as indigenous education.
So you're telling me we're making historic decisions not based on historical funding or expertise, but based on some people from sociology background. The previous committee decision is ask the staff to select historians as expert to make a recommendation. But why we have some professor from sociology to provide such evidence?
The board back in 2022 asked staff to center the voices of those who historically had been underserved within the broader community and did not necessarily see that they belonged within the structure and systems as part of the renaming process. Staff has done that. I'm going to go a little bit further. If the suggestion from the trustee is that a sociology to PhD and the various accommodations that the various individuals that were involved in the renaming process does not meet the standard, then part of what we need to make sure that we are doing is understanding what the specific assignment was that was provided by trustees.
I have no doubt that these are excellent people and academics, but I think you will agree they were not suited for our purposes, which was investigate in historical figures.
Part of this conversation and what we've provided trustees is with the significant literature review that speaks to what has been written around these particular figures throughout history. It is encompassed within the literature review. Thank you.
Okay, my next question regarding consultation. Who really consulted on this case? How many people are consulted?
The board went through a process where board provided direction to staff to engage in a representative group in order to support the school renaming process. As I previously have listed off, membership in this special reference group included representatives from each of the 4 learning centers at the time, 20 community members represented from various stakeholders, including caregivers, community groups, agencies, and individuals, student trustees, members from Indigenous, Black, and racialized communities, academics, system superintendent for urban and Indigenous education, system superintendent for equity, up to 10 principals, and staff representation. Thank you.
What about the parents group? What about the TDSB community group? What about student group? What are the alumni of those schools? Have you consulted those people as well?
Included in that representatives from the 4 learning centers, 20 community members, representations of various stakeholders, including caregivers, community groups, agencies, and individuals, as was prescribed by board.
What are the community groups? Can you give me a few names?
Thank you for the question through the chair. What we have are individuals who are part of community. We had a wide range of individuals that came in to support their renaming committee members. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we will all easily admit that every historical figure is indeed every human, including all of us in this room, is flawed. But equally, we would all agree that everyone, including historical figures, deserve due process. Whether you say Sir John A. Macdonald as an important and vital contributor to the nation that is Canada, or if you blame him alone for all that went wrong in our relationship with Indigenous people, you will agree that if we are to make a judgment and recommendation, they must be based on the research and understanding of experts in the field. This was clear not the case here. The academic advisors engaging in this purpose were 3 professors from Faculty of Education at York University. None of this professor is a historian. Professor Carl James has a PhD in sociology. Professor Vidya Shah, the researcher specialty at York, is our anti-racism and barrier to marginalized groups. And lastly, Professor Susan Diang is Associate Vice President on Indigenous issues at York University. By all counts, she's an excellent teacher, Indigenous educator, scholar, but he's not a historian. I have no doubt these are excellent people, academics, but I think if you also agree with me that they were not suited for our purposes, which was investigate historical figures. I also find it noteworthy through your chair that history has many interpretations to it. Certainly, if we did not already realize this, we will know just from opening your mail inbox, because history is so complex. It's imperative that if we going to make a recommendation to the board that is based on expert opinion on the issue at hand. That's clearly not the case here. Perhaps this is not a place to debate the strengths and weaknesses of Sir John A. Macdonald, Erskine Ryerson, or Henry Dundas, but it's the place to determine whether we have the report that follow a appropriate procedure, especially in investigating historical figures by consulting experts in the actual field. When we want to evaluate the structural integrity of one of our school buildings, we call in structural engineers. We wanted to make judgment on issues in Canadian histories, we should be calling in Canadian historians. This report need to be voted down due to lack of proper consultation with historians We even all received a written delegation from one of the leading scholars in the field, Patrick Dutil, who wrote a book about Sir John A. Macdonald. I invite everybody to read that book. Let's get this right. Regardless of your own personal feeling about these figures, we need to get the process right. Here's a plan to see the staff report or recommendation be voted down. In this case, I encourage all my colleagues vote down this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pei.